I could have never thought that this exotic armor piece is going to be very good ever in Destiny 2 history. Well, let me explain why I think that. So I made a video about this exotic armor piece called the Peregrine Greaves. At the time, they were supposedly going to get a nerf in Season of the Wish. Well, technically it kind of did. So I went into the patch notes and I saw that it did get a nerf and a buff at the same time. Let me explain. So for this exotic armor piece, here's what it states. You now have to be airborne for a brief time before the exotic effects will apply. So you would have to stay airborne a bit longer to proc the perk. This is why I never thought I would use this ever again. And here's another one. Damaging champions, tormentors, or mini bosses with a shoulder charge deals further increased damage. And here's the best part. And it would also refund your melee energy. Yes, you heard that right. It would refund your melee energy. So that's what it does now currently in Season of the Wish. Because usually for this exotic leg armor, it usually is good for void builds on the Titan. Well, in this video, we're going to be focusing on solar because that is the main case for this season. So without further ado, let's head to the abilities, aspects, and fragments, starting with the abilities. Of course, for the solar melee, you gotta put hammer strike for that shoulder charge, because if you don't have it, it ain't gonna work. For your solar grenade, I do prefer using firebolt grenade because one of the base cooldown, which is very less than the other solar grenade, so it's a minute and 4 seconds. All you got to do is throw the grenade at a champion and they'll get a debuff. For the aspects, if you want to deal increased damage, in which case you guys want to do that, you got to put roaring flames, and whenever you get a final blow with your solar abilities, or ignitions, in which case we're going to be using a lot of ignitions, it increases the damage, of course, to your abilities, and it stacks up to 3 times. So the more stacks, the more damage you're going to increase with your abilities. And for the second aspect, I choose to put Sol Invictus for survivability's sake. It would create sunspots after defeating a scorched target, and whenever you're in a sunspot, it would give you restoration, which is basically god mode. Let me explain what fragments you'll need. Let's start with the first one. You're going to want to put Ember of Eruption because it increases the AoE for ignitions, and for the second one is Ember of Empyrean. This one resets, or should I say extends, the duration for restoration and radiant, which we're going to be needing to use if you want to get unlimited amounts of ignitions with the solar exotic weapon we're going to be using. For the third solar fragment, it's Ember of Solace. I like this one because one, it increases the duration for radiant and restoration, and who doesn't like that? And for the final fragment for this build is Ember of Blistering. Whenever you defeat targets with solar ignitions, it would grant you grenade energy, which gives you more of an opportunity to cast your grenades more often to champions. So now that we're done talking about the subclass, let's head to the weapons. We're most likely going to be using the exotic mostly, but I choose to put a blinding grenade launcher on my kinetic weapon slot, because usually, like for end game content, there's going to be a lot of enemies with high HP, and I would like to blind them for them not to just shoot at me, you know? But you don't have to put a blinding. You can choose any other weapon you like. But for the main one is on your energy slot, which is called the Sunshot. It can now proc Scorch and also Ignite because of the seasonal artifact mods. We'll go on to that later. For the Sunshot, whenever you get kills with it, it would release a solar explosion. And this also has kind of like explosive payload, but not really at the same time, because the intrinsic trait is called Sunburn. This weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot. And if you have the catalyst for the Sunshot, it would grant you an increased stat boost. It would increase your range by 30, and it would give you plus 20 stability with the catalyst on. And for the heavy weapon, I chose to put a rocket launcher because this season there's Overload rocket launcher. So the rocket launcher I was using is Apex Predator that comes with reconstruction and bait and switch. That is the god roll if you guys are wondering. And for the seasonal artifact mods, as we can see here, here's what I was using. Currently I have 11 out of 12. So for the 12th one, I do recommend going for Argent Ordnance. As we can see here, it would be the 12th one right there. On the 4th column, this is the seasonal artifact mod that will allow you to debuff champions and bosses with your solar abilities. And for also causing ignitions towards combatants while radiant, on the 5th and final column, as what you see here, whenever you're radiant, solar precision final blows cause combatants to ignite. And for these stats, here's what you need to run. You're gonna need to get resilience, and if you would like, you can go for strength, but we're mainly focusing on champions, tormentors, or mini bosses because those are the 3 main enemies that would refund our melee energy. But if you're one of those people that would like to do like a high stat roll for melee for this build, you can go for strength, but primarily just resilience would do the trick. Now let's head to the armor mods. Here's what you need. Starting with the helmet, you're going to want to put Harmonic Siphon, Hands On, and Ashes to assets, because Hands On will give you tons of super energy on melee kills, and Ashes to assets will do the same thing but with grenades. And Harmonic Siphon will give you an orb of power when getting rapid final blows with solar weapons. Onto the gauntlets. For the gauntlets, you're going to need to use firepower, heavy-handed, and impact induction. For your chest armor, I do recommend going for harmonic resistance, melee damage resistance, and concussive dampener. For the exotic leg armor, you're going to need to put innervation, recuperation, and solar weapon surge for that minor damage boost for your solar weapons. And last but not least, for the Titan mark, you're going to want to put bomber, powerful attraction, and time dilation, because with time dilation, it increases the timer for your weapon damage up to 15 seconds per armor charge. So in this build, you could be able to stun unstoppable champions and overload champions, and also anti-barrier champions, because whenever you become radiant, you'll be provided with anti-barrier rounds, which will provide it to your kinetic weapon. And if you guys would like to see all of the armor mods for this build, it would be right here on screen, or you can just check it out in the link in the description, which is the dim link. So here is how you could be able to use this build if you want to do it effectively. Here's what you need to do. You're first going to want to stun the champion, then afterwards throw your grenade to debuff the champion. Afterwards, run towards the champion to charge up your shoulder charge. Once it's charged up, jump in the air as long as you can, and then as soon as you see the perk is activated on the left side of the screen, be sure to shoulder charge the champion and he'll for sure die instantly. So the gameplay that you're seeing on screen, I did a master loss sector and I was 22 powers below the current activity. So I do think this build is going to be very good in Grandmaster Nightfalls if you play the cards right. What I mean about playing the cards right is that if you have good communication with your teammates and yourself, you'll for sure be able to insta-kill every single champion in a Grandmaster Nightfall. If you guys would like to see more Destiny 2 builds in Season of the Wish, be sure to hit that like and sub button, and I'll see you guys in the next Destiny 2 video. Take care and have a good rest of your day.